Okay, so let's go back. So composition of functions. The composition of functions, f and g, is notated as this. Just so you know, we're in the same chapter, chapter 9, section 4. This is just part 2. And so it looks like a little dot. So sometimes people fill up the circle, sometimes they leave a little, hole inside. So you might want to read it as fog, but no, you read this as g of x. Okay, f of g of x. I think so. I think I'm reading it right. I don't know. Okay, the composition of functions f and g. Okay, and this is how you write it. Okay, and if you were to translate what this means, you can tell obviously this is not, f plus g or f minus g or f times g or even f divided by g. This is something completely different. So what this means is, first you gotta work on g of x, and that's why you see g of x inside the parentheses, because you're going to get the equation for g of x, and then you're going to put it into f of x. Okay, so if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's okay. You usually understand when you solve a problem. So there you go. We have function f of x, which is 3x plus 1, and g of x is x to the third power, and you have to evaluate this function. So you have the composite function right here. So what did I say? First, you gotta start with the g of x. You start with the back. Okay, so what is g of x anyway? X to the third power. And then what we're gonna do is we're going to put this one right here, the x to the third power, into the function of f. Okay, so what was f of x? 3x plus 1. So what we're doing is, instead of x, do you know what we're putting instead of x? We're going to put x to the third power. Okay, so I'm going to copy the 3, and then instead of x, of course, it's going to be x to the third power. Now I'm just going to copy the other stuff, plus 1. And that's it. So you always just start off with the back, which is g of x, which is x to the third power in this case. And then you plug that into f of x, the x right here inside the f of x. Okay? All right. So then that's it, because there's nothing else, you can do for this one. All right? And then, so now let's move on to the next one. Oh, I forgot to add something. What if you had something like f of g of 2 instead? So instead of just x, we have to plug in a number. So then all you have to do is plug in the 2 into the x. It's too easy, right? So it's 3 times 2 to the third power plus 1, which would give you 3 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, plus 1, which is 24, plus 1, your answer will be 25. Okay, so just keep in mind on your test, I could either give you something like this with a number, actual number in it, or I could give you something like this with a letter x. Let's move on to the next one. It's just different. The orders have changed. So first you're going to use f of x. So let's go back. What was f of x anyway? F of x was 3x plus 1. So we have 3x plus 1. But we're going to put that into which equation? We're going to put it into g of x. So what was g of x? It was x to the third power. But instead of x, what are we putting in? We're going to put in 3x plus 1. So we're going to go 3x plus 1 raised to the third power. Okay? And you can stop right here because, there's nothing else you can do. But if the question was, what is the g of f of 1? Now instead of x, you got to plug in the number 1. So we're going to go 3 times 1 plus 1 raised to the third power, which is 3 plus 1, okay, to the third power, which gives you 4 to the third power, which means you got to multiply the 4 3 times. And so what's 16 times 4? 10 times 37. So your answer is 64. Okay? So again, just keep this in mind. And that's pretty much it. So I want to give you your last question though. And obviously your last question is the most intense question, which is also the question that's most likely going to be on the test. So that's question number 5. So this time we have f of x is equal to 5x plus 2. And then g of x is 2 over x minus 1. And I want you to give me f of g of x. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the back part first, which is g of x. So we have 2 over x minus 1 because that's g of x, right? But then we're going to plug that into what? F of x. So you see here, here's f of x. Instead of x, what are we putting in? 2 over x minus x minus 1, right? So I'm going to put 5 here because it's 5 times x. But instead of x, I'm going to put in g of x, this whole thing. And I'm going to go plus 2. Let's see if we could simplify. 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, so it's going to be 10 over x minus 1. And then just put plus 2 here. I mean, you don't have to go any further. What I'm looking for over here is for you to make sure that you go this far and then make sure you tell me that x cannot equal 1. Because remember how the denominator, the x minus 1, cannot equal 0? Okay, so just remember. I need my scratch paper area right here. Our denominator is x minus 1, so x minus 1 cannot equal 0. Which means if we add 1 to both sides, x cannot equal 1. Okay? So that's all I want you to do. Of course, you know, the next question is going to be the other way, g of f of x, right? I'm not going to do that with you because, you know, it's the same thing. All right? So I hope you're ready for the test. Happy learning.